Yeah, we're back.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, so, you know, after getting involved with Jim's campaign and getting involved with the campaign for a new Marshfield High School when I was just 19 years old, serving as the...
Actually, why don't we start over? Sorry.
You want me to start over?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
All right, so we'll start from the beginning again.
Okay.
Sorry to anyone who's watching this on Facebook. We should be set now.
Take two.
Absolutely. So I'm James Kukstis, here from the Scituate and Marshfield Mariners, and I'm here with Pat Kearney and Sean Costello, the candidates for the Democratic nomination for the 4th Plymouth District State Rep seat recently vacated by Jim Cantwell. So format of the debate, I'm going to give the guys each a couple minutes to introduce themselves. We're going to go over some questions on the issues, and then we're going to spend a little time getting to know them. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. So alphabetically, let's start with Sean. Tell us about yourself.
Awesome. Well, take two. James, I complimented you guys at the Mariner on take one, but that's going to be cut.
We just wanted to hear more about it.
Yes.
How we are.
Wanted to hear it one more time.
That's right. Well, we appreciate you having us here, and I will reiterate that I do appreciate being here with Pat. We've been having a lot of fun getting to know each other on the campaign trail, and we'll continue to do that, I know. And we'll be good buddies on September 5th. My name is Sean Costello. I'm a lifelong resident of Marshfield, and I'm proud to be running for state representative to serve the community that I grew up in. I graduated from Marshfield High School, and after that I went off to Stonehill College thanks to my public school education here and all of the opportunities that it provided me. I grew up in a working class family. My parents both pulled long hours, multiple jobs, to make sure that we had food on the table. We went through some tough times, but we got through it, and I watched them pull themselves up and become successful career people, and they're still successful today. Their example, being involved in the community, drove me to want to get involved as well. So I got involved with Jim Cantwell's campaign in 2008 when the seat was open after Frank Hines had vacated it. I was 16 years old, and I just wanted to get involved and do something good, and I believed in Jim. After that, you know, in subsequent years, I helped run his campaigns. I learned a lot from Jim, and through that experience, I learned a lot about Marshfield and Scituate and the issues that we face. And I watched the dedication that he brings to the job and the effort that he brings, and I want to continue that effort, and I want to utilize my experience to do so. For the last 4 years, I've worked as legislative director for a state rep from the South Shore, Representative Bruce Ayers from Quincy. In that capacity, I drafted, tracked, and analyzed legislation, worked on budget amendments, and put forth a legislative agenda to benefit his district. I learned a whole lot from him as well. And I'm also in my second term here on the Marshfield School Committee, and I've served as chair since 2016. We've accomplished so many great things, of which I'm very proud, including the passage of universal tuition-free full-day kindergarten, something that we've been working towards for a while, and under my leadership we were able to get through, thanks to the support of the people of Marshfield. So I look forward to a great conversation with Pat and with you today, James. We're excited to share our ideas, but I think we're also excited to share just a little bit more about us and moving forward. And you know, we're a couple of young guys looking to do some good stuff for our community. You know, I bring a whole lot of experience to the table, almost a decade's worth of combined experience in local, state, and federal government. So I look forward to sharing that with everybody today, and I look forward to a great discussion. So I'll pass the mic on to Pat.
Awesome, sounds good. How's it going, Pat?
Awesome, James. Thank you for having us, and thank you to the Mariner for putting this together. I appreciate it. For those of you listening and those of you on Facebook tuning in, if you haven't met me, my name is Patrick Kearney, and I'm running for the Democratic nomination for the state representative seat here in Marshfield and Scituate. I am a lifelong resident of the South Shore. My grandfather built our original family home in Scituate in 1928, down off the Egypt Beach. And I'm running for state representative because I believe that I understand this community. And the issues that I think that we're facing here in Marshfield and Scituate are not just things that are talking points for me. They are a part of who I am. And I believe that I'm the best candidate that you know, reflects the fabric of both of these towns. I'm a graduate of the Massachusetts Maritime Academy. I'm an officer in the United States Navy Reserve and a member of the Strategic Sea Lift Readiness Group. I'm the only candidate in the race with the military leadership experience, and I look forward to bringing that skill set to Beacon Hill to advocate for the residents of Marshfield and Scituate. I'm the only candidate in this race who's employed. I work in both Marshfield and Scituate. I've started my own software company in maritime education. I'm a member of the IATSE Local 11 Stagehandlers Union, proud member of organized labor, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development at the software company PriceBlocks. And I believe that this private sector experience is crucial to advocate on behalf of this district because most of the people that live here in Marshfield and Scituate are in their livings in the private sector. I'm the only candidate in this race that's been employed as a captain working in the charter and commercial fishing industry, and I believe that that industry is under attack, and it's part of our local economic engine, and it's being overburdened by government regulations that are written by people that have never been on a fishing boat before. So definitely looking forward to bringing their voices to Beacon Hill as well. And I believe that my combined experience in government, the private sector, organized labor, and my military leadership ability distinguishes me to most effectively hit the ground running up in Beacon Hill. I've knocked on 4,800 doors. I think if you're going to represent the people, you should know the people, and I'm really looking forward to today's discussions and hopefully representing all of them on Beacon Hill. So thanks for having us.
Sounds good. Sean, I just want to let you respond about it. So you were employed with Bruce Ayers recently until you resigned to the campaign full-time, is that correct?
Yes, that is true, and that occurred after just about 4 years of working on Beacon Hill full-time, pulling long hours there on behalf of the people in Representative Ayers' district, doing a whole lot of work with him. So right now I'm a full-time candidate, and I'm proud of that because that I think shows my dedication and commitment to the people of Marshfield and Scituate, hearing their concerns, meeting them. I've also knocked thousands of doors, but I'm also proud that I do work for Marshfield. I'm the chairman of the school committee here. I'm in my second term, and thanks to the people of Marshfield for trusting me, I have been leading that effort in our public schools and on behalf of our 4,200 students and our 800 faculty and staff. So I do work on behalf of the people of Marshfield every day.
Excellent, sounds good. So you guys are knocking on a lot of doors, it sounds like. That has got to be brutal in the summertime. But now in this office it's a little bit hot, and I cannot imagine what it's like out in the sun, so good on you guys.
This feels pretty cool compared to what it's like outside.
I believe it. So I'm, imagine as you're doing this, and I actually have, seen both of you knocking on my doors. I'm a Scituate voter myself. And you must hear from a lot of different concerns from a lot of different people. So at this point, we're going to kind of jump into those things and see kind of what are the topics on the minds of we think our readers and of the residents of the district. Mm-hmm. So to start off, one thing that as a reporter here is the most fun for me is we cover storms. We are out there in Brent Rock and in Sand Hills and stuff during the storm, and we see firsthand how brutal these things can be. Mm-hmm. And that is a place where especially Representative Cantwell was a leader, and past legislatures for our district have been leaders as well. So I kind of want to know about, beyond ensuring that there's proper funding for disaster relief and beyond repairing and reinforcing existing infrastructure, how can the state be a leader in kind of mitigating the changes that are coming in the climate and also, the severity and the frequency of these severe storms? How do we get ahead of that? Let's start with Pat, start with Sean first.
Yeah, James, and it's been a pleasure knocking on so many doors and hearing the concerns of people, and I'm sure, as you know, living where you do, in Scituate right down the street from me, you know the concerns firsthand and the damage that these storms can cause. In March, I was really happy to be involved in doing the cleanup for those storms, both in our neighborhood and over in Brant Rock. I spent 2 days, I brought my truck down there and helped the residents and did all the Brant Rock cleanup. We spent 2 days in the marsh cleaning everything from little nip bottles out of the marsh to oil cans. It was and basketball hoops, refrigerators. It was incredible what some of these storms can do. And I think that the next state rep needs to be proactive in making sure that we come up with short-term solutions and long-term solutions. And the short-term solutions, some of being innovative, wave attenuation devices, making sure that there is funding for seawall construction, and also making sure that we continue to be an environment that nourishes a business climate for people that are looking into renewable energy sources to reduce our carbon footprint. At a national level, as you know, we've regressed in some of our progress that we've made on climate change. We as a state legislator need to be making sure that we keep up with those, the movement towards making sure that we're a greener economy. So I'm looking forward to bringing that to Beacon Hill and making sure that we have adequate funding for all those protection measures for the coastal homes.
Definitely, and we definitely hear a lot about the solutions in both of these towns. So, Sean.
Absolutely, and you know what? That's one of the major issues I've heard knocking on doors as well. You know, it's definitely something that our next state rep needs to keep at the forefront of their mind because our last few legislators have been so proactive on that issue. It absolutely is an issue of climate change. I think it's important that we recognize the impact that climate change is having here. We know we have these rising sea levels, and we know that we're getting more frequent and more severe storms every year because of climate change. And we need a legislature that is proactive on that issue as well. As a legislator, I will request to sit on the Joint Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture, so I can be involved in policies that directly impact that. I'll be pushing for things like the expansion of the renewable energy portfolio. I think that's important. And when it comes to repairing our local seawalls and coastal infrastructure and making sure that we're being proactive there as well, after this past storm in March, the really big one that we had, I think it was March 2nd or March 3rd.
Yeah, it was the first week of March.
Yeah,
We had 4 in March that were pretty big.
Right.
Sorry,
this first big one, you know, so late in the season, but this first big one, you know, I was able to tour the damage with the Lieutenant Governor when she came down here, along with a few other people, you know,
Myself included.
Yourself included, absolutely. Representative Cantwell at the time, and Town Administrator Moresco, and Superintendent Granatino and I went on behalf of these schools because it certainly does impact how we operate our public schools, and it did have a big impact on our transportation and a few other factors, and making sure that our students were taken care of. The police were keeping us constantly updated about students and their families that they had to rescue from these floods. And as a legislator, I think what's important is that I bring the experience and understand you know, a few different things. First of all, that my boss was a founding member of the Coastal Caucus, and that Coastal Caucus is what pushed forward, under Jim's leadership, the implementation of the Dam and Seawall Fund. There's over $100 million that are available for communities that need those grants. I know how to fight for those monies, and I know how to bring them in effectively because that's what we've done, and that's a policy that I was involved with. But we do need to be looking forward as well, and like I said, a big part of that is recognizing the impact that climate change is having. And a Democratic state representative hopefully will certainly be pushing for that.
Excellent. So staying on the topic of the environment for a little while. So as you guys know, I'm sure Marshfield at the town meeting banned the use of single-use plastic bags recently, and Situate is in discussion and the exploration
We're moving
phase
forward on that.
of doing something like that. So, you know, that is banning plastic bags. When you look at the issue, it's really just the tip of the iceberg, and it's been proven in study after study to be mostly a litter removal technique. It doesn't. There are no studies that really show that it has a measurable impact on the amount of plastics in our water stream. So really, I want to know from you guys, what do you think is, like, you know, a way for the state to act meaningfully to actually significantly impact the amount of plastics entering our water streams? And they're coming from our packaging and all the things we order online. They're coming in our food, as far as, you know, fast food. Anywhere you go out and get to eat, they're in their commercial fishing equipment is one of the leading contributors of plastics in the water. So what are the ways for the state, as Massachusetts has historically been, to be a leader on this effort of green and have a significant impact beyond these kind of I don't want to say easy, because these were hard fought for victories in the plastic bag bans, but how do we move forward from that and actually have a real significant impact?
Yeah, so I am happy to hear that Marshfield has passed the plastic bag ban. I know we're making progress on passing that in Situate as well. And over 2/3 of the towns here in Massachusetts have actually passed in their municipalities a plastic bag ban. So that's good to see. I'd like to see it across the board on a state level. It's not just at the local level that we can pass these initiatives, and I do think that when passing it at the state level, it's not someone in Situate or Marshfield getting a plastic bag and say hand over and then disposing of it. You know, if it's banned across the state, we will definitely see a reduction of plastic in the water. We've seen a drastic reduction in plastics in the water in California, where they've been a little more aggressive on some of these plastic bag bans. It is important to hold businesses accountable that are trying to skate those plastic bag bans. There's a single-use plastic bag, and that has to do with the thickness and the diameter of the plastic itself. So making sure that we're not just changing the thickness of the plastic bag, but making sure that we're eliminating the plastic that is ending up in the oceans.
Yeah, so I kind of want to push a little further on that, and you both will have a chance to respond, obviously. But beyond bags, because there's so much plastic in everyday everything we're using. I mean, I brought you guys the water bottles. There's one example there. Both towns have takeout establishments. Marshfield has a number of fast food restaurants. There are so many ways that we, as residents, can be encouraged to act more responsibly in an environmental way. So beyond bags, like, what do we do?
Well, it starts at home and starts individually, I'd say, making sure that we're not drinking
This
is our only option.
It starts with you, James. Not giving water bottles out. But also encouraging our kids to be aware of the plastic that they're using. Instead of bringing a water bottle to the field, using a renewable water, a multi-use water bottle. So it's starts at home. It starts on a personal level, educating our friends and our family on the impacts that plastic has on our oceans, the impacts that plastic has on the environment, and then doing our own part to reduce our own use.
Cool. Sean?
Well, just a few things, and there's a whole lot packaged in there, and I'm proud to have voted for the plastic bag ban in Marshfield at town meeting this past go-around at our annual town meeting. I'm proud to be a frequent attender of town meeting, and that's one of the best proposals that I have seen in a while, and I have to give credit where credit is due. There was a whole group of people who pushed for it, but in particular I want to recognize we had 2 students from Marshfield who were involved with that. They did a great job. It's important that we educate the next generation on recycling and on environmental consciousness. I want to give another plug. We're in Marshfield Public Schools. We do have a good track record of being environmentally conscious, and we have a great green team there, a group of students who get together and make sure that they're recycling all the time. So it's good to see the next generation recognizing their responsibility to do that. But you know what, in terms of moving forward, I would also like to see the Commonwealth take more of an active role in that. Right now, we've seen the plastic bag ban being totally up to the municipalities, which is understandable to a point, but the Commonwealth can do more to incentivize that. And there's also so much more we can do. We can ban plastic straws. I think we've all heard that plastic straws are a big problem with the environment, and that's something that's coming up. And that's
Starbucks tried to do that, but then they made plastic covers. So
exactly. just more plastic
than the straws.
So they don't get stuck in the animals.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. But those straws are a big issue, and that's next down the pike. And anything that benefits our environment in a conscientious way, I'll be in favor of.
Awesome. Yeah, I had the pleasure of covering an event at Furnace-Brook Middle School when school was back in session, run by, I think, Mr. Boudreau from the science department.
Boudreau and Sean Baldwin.
Yeah, a climate change symposium. And the
Great
kids are definitely getting some good education there on what the impacts of all that is on their future life and on Marshfield particularly.
They know more than so many adults.
They're doing a good job over
wonderful
there,
to
for
see
sure.
them doing it. Yep.
Cool. So I would like to then jump to education there. So this is personal background with each of you that you kind of have very different, and I want to kind of explore that a little bit. Pat, you went to private school, you went to Down Country Day and BC High, correct?
Yes.
And Sean, you went to all Marshfield Public Schools, right?
K through 12.
Yeah, so how do you guys feel that your own personal experience and education background shaped the way you think education should be addressed at the State House?
Sure.
I want to start with Sean?
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I'm really proud of my public school education. It's what made me who I am today. I've had some wonderful teachers, and the Marshfield community did an outstanding job providing for my education when I was going through Marshfield Public Schools, and that's why when I graduated shortly thereafter, I wanted to get involved with making our education even better. So I stepped up and volunteered as a member of the leadership team for a new Marshfield High School. I was the secretary of that campaign committee, knocked thousands of doors for that effort, and I'm so proud of the facility that we have now. But even after that, I wanted to further my commitment, in part to help maintain that facility and ensure that we were using it to its maximum potential. So I ran for school committee, and we've done a whole lot of good things for public education here in Marshfield, and we've done it by being conscientious to the taxpayer. Around the state, the average annual increase is at least a couple of percentage points higher than what our average annual increase is. And we're proud of that because we do so much with so little, but at the same time, that means that we're not getting our fair share of funding. The state funding formula is broken, and I have lived this every day for the last 4 years as I fight for funding at the local level and as I work with these policies at the state level and have that experience there. Marshfield, prior to the change in funding formula, was getting 60% of our funding from the town and 40% from the state. That was a whole lot better than what it is now, which is 85% of our funding comes from the town and only 15% from the state, and that's only because it's the legal minimum. Marshfield and Scituate are two of the only communities in the entire state that are negatively impacted by that formula, and we need somebody at the State House is going to be fighting to change that formula, and somebody who's going to be fighting to bring in new dollars, and that affects so much more than just your public education. That impacts how you do business throughout the town as a whole. Our public schools are about half of our budget. For the last 4 years, I've been the steward of a $48 million budget on behalf of the people of Marshfield, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what we've done. But when you have 85% of your funding coming from the town, and you only get a certain amount of increase every year, and your revenue only goes up a certain amount every year, and you can only do so much at the municipal level, something's got to change because it's going to impact how you run business throughout the entire town. More funding from the state for education means that the town can do better things for public safety, for transportation, for the environment, for all of these other factors that come into play. So education is certainly a huge issue that I hope to address at the State House. I hope to bring my experience as the educational leader here in Marshfield as the chairman of the school committee since 2016, and I'll work my hardest to utilize that experience on behalf of Marshfield and Scituate.
Great. Pat?
Yeah, so as I have stated in the past and will continue to talk about, I think education is the very foundation of our next generation. As a graduate of Massachusetts Maritime Academy, someone that went to public higher education, I think that it's important for quality education, not only in kindergarten, but for all grades, and making sure that public higher education is affordable. Looking forward to working with Senator Mike Rush on Senate Bill 308, looking at the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Commission. Chapter 70 funding formula is broken. It's not only Marshfield and Scituate that is affected. It's actually all communities in the Commonwealth. Education is underfunded across the board. We're $170 million short this year alone. I know that Boston is struggling as well with a lot of their funding having to go to reimbursements of charter schools. And, we're looking at an estimate in 2020, 2022, them not having any money for their own public schools. So the Chapter 70 funding formula needs to be revamped. We need to be making sure that Marshfield and Scituate, Marshfield, congratulations, Sean, on the all-day kindergarten. Scituate still does not have that. And Marshfield and Scituate can't be the last people to do these things. We need a leader that's making sure that we're the first to implement these. All-day kindergarten, making sure that our schools are funded, and making sure that the UMass system is funded as well. We know that whether it's Marshfield or Scituate, 38 to 42% of their graduating classes go to state schools. So I look forward to also working with Representative Paul Mark in the legislature on House Bill 639, which is the Finish Line Grant Program. It allows for assistance on tuition and fees for Massachusetts residents in their last year of college. So it's not free tuition, it's not anyone can go, but it does incentivize people to get through the finish line. A part of also that legislation is making sure that we are taking care of our part-time professors that are teaching at multiple universities. As of right now, if you're teaching at 3 public institutions, not at one, they're not covered with health insurance. So although it might be a full-time job, they're considered part-time employees and they're not getting health insurance. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our students, because if a teacher's worried if they don't have health insurance, they're probably not teaching as well. So taking care of the teachers, taking care of the students, and making sure that everyone, kindergarten up through seniors in college, are taken care of.
Can I respond to
Sure.
that? Just got a couple things to add. I agree that public higher education is absolutely something we need to focus on, but I just want to bring it back to K through 12, because 96% of students in the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts go to a public school K through 12, and I think it's important to just talk about a couple different issues. First of all, Marshfield was one of only a handful of communities that moved over to full day kindergarten fully funded next year. We're really proud of that, and we're especially proud because Marshfield should be a leader on that issue, and we are, because the South Shore is the holdout. This entire region has not implemented full day kindergarten as of yet, with only a couple of exceptions.
83% of the state has done that.
Exactly.
So it's,
we're one region that hadn't.
yeah,
And
but it's not a
Marshfield is now-
leader. It's behind.
We're absolutely a leader on it, because the South Shore is
It's
now looking how to
83% of
follow
people
our
have
lead.
done it
Yep,
before.
but we're looking how to follow our lead in Situate on
You're
the same
following the
day.
lead of the 83% of the rest of
Exactly,
the Commonwealth.
exactly.
So
When
it's
I
not
started-
leadership, it's followership.
It's absolutely leadership,
I
because when I
would
was
strongly disagree with you.
when
on
I
that.
was elected to the
There's
school
351
When I was
municipalities in
elected
the
to the
city
school committee.
in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and if 83% of them have implemented it
Mhm.
before Marshfield,
Mhm.
that's not leadership, that's followership.
And I didn't want our students to fall behind, so as soon as I was elected to the school committee, I started working. But we had to do it in a way that best fitted our community and our students. If we did it as soon as I was elected in 2015, we would have crippled our budget and we wouldn't have been able to do anything else. So we put forward a plan. We laid out that plan in our capital plan throughout the next few years. I worked with our administrator of business and finance. I worked with our superintendent. I worked with the rest of the school committee and took a lead on this issue. And I'm proud that we implemented full day kindergarten without cutting a single position, without cutting a single program. We had to shoulder a new unexpected increase in our transportation contract. We implemented a new SAT prep course at the high school, and we put in full day kindergarten only with a 2.2% increase in our overall budget. That's because we are responsible to the taxpayers of this community. We didn't want to have to go to them for an override or raising their taxes, and we didn't. And I'm proud of that. That's the kind of leadership that we need on Beacon Hill.
And good on the Board of Selectmen for funding it.
No, the Board of Selectmen doesn't fund the schools unless they, they, of course they fund the schools, but they don't fund initiatives unless we advocate with them for that.
Yeah, with them, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I
because
just
that's
wanted to
the-
give them credit too.
Well, no, absolutely, and I'll give them credit all day long, but I'm sure all three of them who have supported me in this election would tell you that full-day kindergarten wouldn't have happened without me pushing the issue for years, and we can ask them on that if we need to. But I do want to talk about charter schools as well, because Pat did bring that up. That's an important issue for me as well, and of course, we are losing so much funding to charter schools, and I'm not opposed to the concept of a charter school. I think innovation in education is a good thing, and charter schools are created to share best practices with public schools.
Absolutely.
But they're not doing that. In so many cases, Rising Tide right here in the South Shore has a non-disclosure agreement for their teachers, meaning that they can't share these best practices with anybody else because they're contractually obligated not to. And when you have a community like Marshfield, where we have only a set number of students going off to charter schools, is not an incredibly high amount, but we were still losing over $250,000 per year, and that money wasn't being reimbursed. And when you lose that money, it doesn't cut down on your costs. You still have to pay for the same amount of teachers. You still have to pay to keep the lights on and keep things running. So
Is it really losing the money though? I mean, I
Absolutely.
understand that, but you are educating less pupils. So,
yeah, but our costs don't go down.
so would you argue that there is I mean, that sounds like a management problem to me. I mean, you're educating less, and therefore your product is less. So shouldn't you therefore have less funding?
No, absolutely not, because our costs stay the same. We have to maintain this level of teacher. When we have just a small set amount of students leaving, that doesn't change our classroom ratios. It doesn't change how many teachers we need to teach a certain subject. It doesn't change the requirements that the state hands down for us to teach. So our costs stay the same. Our energy costs stay the same. Just because there's one less student in a certain room every day doesn't mean that it costs less to keep the lights on. So our costs absolutely stay the same.
But
Our
then, so
transportation
then to
costs-
both of you then, because I want to kind of stay on focus a little bit, to both of you then, so how as a state legislature, as a state, how do we allow for charter schools and have the funding equal? Like, what is the model that makes it work then, in both of your opinions? Let's start with Pat, because Sean.
Well, as both of us had previously talked about, the Chapter 70 funding formula needs to be revamped. And if we're not getting reimbursements promised by the legislature for the charter schools. As Sean knows, as I know firsthand, as anyone that has any experience following what government is doing, there's a promise from the legislature to fund the reimbursements. They did not make good on their promise, which is why we need new leaders on Beacon Hill. And when those reimbursements don't come, it goes on to the municipality to pick up the tab for that. And when the municipality has to pick up the tab for that, that pulls the funds away from the public school system. So we don't need to be anti-charter school, but we need to be pro-education. And we need to be pro-public schools and making sure that they're fully funded before other education initiatives are moved forward. And it shouldn't be one kid versus the other. We should be looking.
Well, for the record, the charter schools aren't public schools.
Look what?
You're saying charter schools versus public schools. The charter schools are public schools.
Some would argue that's not. There's privatization in charter schools as well. So I mean,
they have public schools.
What I'm saying is, both public education systems need to be fully funded.
Okay, Sean?
I'm going to take umbrage with what you just said about charter schools being public. They're publicly funded. There's nothing else public about them. Charter schools choose their own students.
Yeah.
There's no local accountability at all. They're run by a board of directors. In Marshfield and in Situate, we elect a school committee, as I have been elected twice, and that is local accountability. The public has the final say in what happens in their school system, in their public school system, because of those elections. So
that goes back to my original question then.
Yes.
So how do we make the charter system work? Is it possible with public accountability?
It absolutely is possible. There does need to be more local accountability. School committees need to be given the authority to determine whether or not a charter school can be established in that area. And before we think about raising the cap on how many charter schools can be in Massachusetts, we need to look at the funding formula. Right now, it says that schools should be reimbursed for the loss of that student 100% the first year, and then 25% the next 4 years. Right now, we're getting not even 25% that first year, and then 0% for the next few years. And that's because the administration's not funding that account that's supposed to be doing those reimbursements.
The legislature's not funding it.
Right, but it's under the control of the administration. I know this firsthand through my experience with the Marshfield School Committee, and it's important that we have somebody on Beacon Hill who knows how those things work. So I'll take that experience. I've been involved with this effort for a number of years now, since 2016 with the No on 2 campaign, where I had the opportunity to do a whole lot of media availability and debate statewide on WGBH's Greater Boston program, with the woman leading the charge for the implementation of lifting the cap.
So I'm going to challenge you on this a little bit, actually. So the reimbursement, as you said, it's tapers off, right? It's an adjustment period for these schools.
Yes.
Charter schools are not a new addition to this district or this area. South Shore Public Charter School has been here since we were in elementary school.
Absolutely.
So at this point, as this has been an institution in our district for a while, shouldn't it be on the districts themselves to have made these adjustments with the change in capacity?
Well, you look at what we've done here in Marshfield, and I'm sure in school districts across the South Shore, in that we work with such a small number of a budget allocation. I just spoke before about how 85% of our funding comes from the town and only 15% from the state. But you also look at most school districts around the area. Most school districts are funding close to 90% of their budgets are payroll. Here in Marshfield, it's 84%, which we're proud of because that gives us a little more wiggle room to use to implement some new programs. But the fact remains the same, that when more students go off to charter schools and those costs continue to rise, it's all tied to how much you spend annually per student.
Right,
so the more you increase your budget,
but the more students that are going to charter schools, the more you should be able to adjust your own spending to adjust it. You said it earlier. The problem is that because one student leaves, you obviously don't lose a head count because of a teacher head count because of that. But if there are more students leaving, it should be upon the district to then be able to adjust what they're doing to meet up with whatever they're actually teaching.
Well, keep in mind we have over 4,200 students, and it's a very, very, very small number of those that are going off to charter schools in the first place. It's negligible when it comes to revamping things and reshifting your personnel or your programs or anything like that. But it is very noticeable when it comes to the funding.
Sure. So I go back to my original question then. Is there a model that makes it work? Because what it sounds like right now is that you think the state should be paying twice for every student that goes to a public charter school because they're getting funding to go into the charter school and then they're getting the reimbursement to the district. So is there a model that fiscally makes sense and works?
Well, the first step is to reimburse the districts with the full amount.
So
That's
the
the law.
answer is
That's what it
that
says.
That's the
agree with
promise that the
but
legislature made to the Commonwealth.
over time though. So really, I mean, you're talking
Over the
about
last
talking
13
about
years, they haven't funded it at
that's
all.
not up for debate right now. But my point is,
But that's the truth.
that's what I just said.
Okay.
My point is though, if it's not a 100% reimbursement model every single year.
Right.
So
It should
this
be the
argu-
first year.
It should be the first year, absolutely. But by this model, how does it then? If the problems persist year over year over year, and you're getting less funding, which you're dealing with already because it's not being fully reimbursed, then is there a model that works for funding for charter schools?
Yeah, you know what, and this is exactly what the legislature needs to bring more of a focus on, and that's what the MTA has been pushing for. That's what so many more entities have been pushing for. There are bills up at the State House to study this and revamp the way that we do charter schools. But again, it starts with making sure our public schools are fully funded, and because of the way that charter schools are funded, they're just not. I think we both.
So the answer,
agree
so
on
the
that.
answer, no, right now. You don't think there's a way that's officially responsible.
Everything's a process. Trust me, from my time on the school committee and from my time on Beacon Hill, everything is a process.
But do
There's
you
correct
believe that there
answer
is
just
a
like
way
that.
to make it work?
Yes.
Eventually in the future, absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's a way to make almost
So
anything.
put a time frame on that. So we've been having this for like 20 years, right? So how long will it take, in your estimation, for a system like that to work?
It depends on when the state chooses to address the issue of reimbursement.
If
That's
they
the first
if
step.
they were fully, if they were gung ho going for it, there was no pressure from the Massachusetts Teachers Association, anything like that. How long do you think it would take a legislature to make a system like this work? And we're going to move on after this question. Yes or no? Or not yes or no. Time frame.
A couple of sessions.
Okay. Pat?
As soon as the legislative body is willing to work together on it. I don't know how long that takes. I think that there's been a lack of debate on the House floor, and I think that when the 160 reps, and maybe even with this new incoming class, there's 24 open seats. Maybe we see a movement in the legislature for more willingness to work together, more willingness for debate, and bringing some of those informed voices together. Hopefully we can get it on quickly.
Great, cool. So something that actually has had a lot of debate, we'll move on to next. This will be one of our last questions on the issue, and then we'll kind of go to some more rapid fire things. So what's interesting about this district when it comes to this issue, which is recreational marijuana, is that Situate is not allowing retail recreation shops, and Marshfield is.
Yes.
So which way, and I don't want to hear, it's up to the town, let the voters decide, you guys personally, which do you think is the right way to go?
Well, as a state legislator, the people have spoken on it. It has gone out to the public for vote. It is going to be legal. I think that it's important that it's rolled out in a safe and responsible manner, bringing in mental health experts, talking with police chiefs, making sure that there's adequate funding for the police departments to make sure that people aren't driving under the influence. But I do respect municipalities and the individuals in those municipalities to express themselves in the oldest form of government, which is town hall, democratic vote, and I leave that up to the decisions of the municipalities whether they should if they want to have pot shops in town or not.
Sean?
Well, yeah, the ballot question that passed in 2016 was 25 pages long. I read the whole thing, and I'll tell you now that the way it was written bothered me, and I'm glad to see that the legislature did start to make some changes to that. Of course, with the taxing the 3% local option for additional tax revenue at the local level. The people of Marshfield and Situate have spoken. Both of those communities have made their own decision on that, and we do have to make sure that we're rolling it out in a safe way. There are still so many unknowns with recreational marijuana. One of the major ones is that, of course, we see all the time an issue in society is the issue of drunk driving, and there's certainly an easy way to determine whether or not a person is driving under the influence of alcohol, but we don't have a clear-cut way to determine whether or not a person is driving under the influence of marijuana. And there is a lot of research to show that driving impaired while under the influence of marijuana is not a good thing. It is similar to...
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, exactly. It's putting yourself at risk, and it's putting the public as a whole at risk. So we need to work with those public safety officials. We need to make sure that we're implementing the proper commissions and studies and making sure that we're being very proactive and solving this issue as soon as possible.
Cool. So, I'm a reporter, I'm not a politician. And this is one thing that has really kind of always confused me and irked me when we're talking about both the marijuana discussion and the charter school discussion. It's because, you know, everything you guys said is completely correct and well and good. The state voted to legalize it, like as you pointed out, Pat, and then, you know, then we have these towns, and part of the legislation that was drafted was, okay, well, it's legal in the state thing, but if the town during that election had voted that they didn't want it, then they can take another vote and they can ban it, or, you know, along these lines. So basically, changing the terms after the game. And then you talk about the charter school discussion, and you look at where the results at a state level as to where people voted for these things down. And the places where charter schools are arguably not needed voted it down for the whole state, and the places where these charter schools are needed were voted, places voted overwhelmingly in favor of expanding the charter school question. So how do you, as politicians, rectify kind of picking and choosing when you want the will of the voters to matter, or when you want to do a try again?
So that's a lot to be digested there, but I think that
it's pretty straightforward.
No, I mean, you mentioned a few different issues: marijuana, schools, legislators. So I think that, as you know, some things, marijuana is actually illegal on the federal level, but some states have opted to legalize it. Going down the food chain there are municipalities that are willing to ban it. So I think that...
So why should the states vote? So why can't these towns that voted in favor of having expanded charter schools not go and then have expanded charter schools if these people that voted down marijuana that passed on the state level can then go ahead and ban marijuana?
Marijuana is a business. Charter schools has to do a lot with...
Sean just pointed out that he believes charter schools are
Charter
business.
schools are definitely a business.
well, what I'm saying is marijuana is a very for-profit, and
this isn't about. I mean, I don't think this is about the actual issue at hand. It's about the democratic process and where it stands.
Yeah. So what I said before is I respect people's in the municipalities in Marshfield and Scituate, for the people of Marshfield and Scituate to vote if they want marijuana shops or not.
So if those towns and counties or wherever that had voted in favor of expanding charter schools,
but that ballot question was out to the state, it wasn't to the town.
And the ballot question was out to the state as to whether to legalize marijuana, and marijuana passed statewide.
Exactly.
So your logic is flawed there.
How is it flawed?
Because you're saying that because it was a statewide thing on the charter questions, and it was voted down, then they should have changed.
But funding for public school systems and charter schools comes from the state. Funding for marijuana businesses comes from the private sector.
But the tax benefits from the marijuana industry go to the state and the town, so why it's different?
We don't actually know where it goes right now because it hasn't been rolled out.
You know, it's like so why? So my question goes back to all issues removed. Why in some situations does the state will of the voters matter more than in others? And that's the issue we're looking at here with marijuana and with charter schools.
The state will of the voters.
The statewide vote,
yes,
was to not expand charter schools.
That has something to do with charter schools, with everyone that resides in the 351 cities and towns in the state of Massachusetts.
So does marijuana, though, man.
I know. So
you can go to the town next door.
Exactly, but the charter schools and the public schools, it's all for the 351 cities and towns. The marijuana, we've said, okay, it's legal, but in the municipality, that's up to the democratic vote of that town.
And I go back to my original question, you can both respond. So then why does the democratic results of the towns that did vote in favor of expanding charter schools not matter?
Because
there
isn't charter schools in every municipality.
There are in every county, every district that they have.
And there are not...
And if you have these geographic boundary issues, you're going to have the same issue with marijuana, because you can go to the next town over.
Exactly, which is why
but then
the
people don't have access.
Marshfield and Scituate have the ability
But then the people don't have access to more charters, even though you're talking about the two different wills of the voter, at the state level and at the town level.
I think they're two very separate. I think they're very two different topics.
Can I jump in? Yeah, thanks, Pat. So they're apples and oranges.
Yeah, you can't compare the two.
Absolutely, and I'll explain why. Is that first of all, question 2 was a small change to a system that was already in place. The state was already regulating charter schools, and all it was doing was lifting the cap. It wasn't saying whether or not charter schools were allowed. It was just a small change to that. The marijuana ballot question was placing a whole system of regulations on an industry that had been, to that point, only legalized for medicinal purposes. So they're very much apples and oranges. And you know, another reason why the municipalities are allowed to do that is because the way the ballot question was written, and when the legislature came in and said that right now in the ballot question, this is why I didn't like the language of the ballot question, the only way a municipality could stop a marijuana facility, a recreational marijuana facility from coming in would be by local referendum. So that's a vote at the ballot box, and that's expensive. So the legislature changed that and said those communities that didn't vote in favor of it have the opportunity with their Board of Selectmen or whatever authorizing agency to vote to zone things differently so there was no legal marijuana sales in that town. So they absolutely are apples and oranges. I get what you're saying, but with question 2, it was just a small minor change lifting the cap on a system that already existed with regulations for a number of years. Question 4 put in a whole new system of regulations on an industry that had yet to be regulated.
Sure.
And through my experience at the State House, that's we need somebody who can recognize that. I think we're both saying that they are apples and oranges, but that's why they're apples and oranges.
And I mean, I think it's a question of democratic principles in that way. It's not apples and oranges, but I think you guys have both made your points very well about that. Very cool. Excellent. So one last question, and then we'll go into some rapid fire things. That's going to be.
That's what you said last time.
No, I said 2 more. This is the second. I'm just kidding. And this one, as you guys said earlier when you guys were doing your introduction, is you guys are both pretty young, and younger than the previous office holders, I assume, were when they would be taking office should to be elected. So, do you guys view your youth as an asset or a liability during the campaign, and as to your time in office? Should it happen?
I wonder what we're going to answer.
Well, I think it's absolutely an asset, and I think that overall experience is an asset as well. So I think that young individuals don't have a strong advocate at the State House right now. I think that the issues that our generation is going to be facing are some issues that are not necessarily faced by those that have been elected previously or that are still in the legislature. Some of the things we've touched on today: climate change, unaffordable higher education, and the effects of climate change on the district, flood insurance maps, making it unaffordable for individuals to live in the communities that we grew up in. Fishing regulations, sustainability, and what that does to small business in this district. When the fishermen can't go out, they're not buying fuel, they're not buying bait. When the tourism is decreased, people aren't eating at local restaurants, people aren't coming into town, and that drastically affects the town's tax base. As we know, there's over 2,000 homes in the floodplain in Marshfield, over 1,500 in the floodplain in Scituate. $22 million worth of the town's budget in Scituate alone comes from coastal homes and homes in the floodplain. So we need to be making sure that we are putting forward an aggressive legislative agenda to combat climate change, to be supportive of small business, and offer job opportunities and training to youth. On a national level, we are seeing that unions are under attack. I'm proud to have been endorsed by over a dozen labor unions, and making sure that we have adequately funded trade schools to provide options to graduating high school seniors for economic opportunity, and making sure that we're not aggressively attacking a lot of the positive benefits of organized labor. So I do think it's multifaceted. I think that our youth provides a huge asset to the next generation at the State House, but I think that my experience as a military officer, the training that I've received in that, working in the private sector, working in organized labor, has allowed me a very broad spectrum to best represent everyone in this community. So.
I also meant to say, feel free to share your age if you feel comfortable doing so.
Sure. So, I think my age is absolutely an asset. I think I bring an energy and a passion for this district, and because of my age, I'll be able to fight my very hardest and bring that experience to the State House. John F. Kennedy.
You're at the State House, though.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly right. I was there for 4 years. Thank you.
But
John F. Kennedy.
Nothing has changed, so we're looking for change, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm running for state rep.
Yeah.
So John F. Kennedy challenged the next generation to step up and carry the torch, and I've lived that. I've been involved in making my community a better place since I was 16 years old, and I've challenged the next generation to get involved as well. For going on 8 years, I volunteered at Marshfield High School. James, you know this because you've seen our club in action. with the Marshfield Youth and Government Delegation. It's part of a statewide program of which I'm on the board of directors. And this past year I had 50 students. It's a nonpartisan club. They're all different ages, grades 9 through 12, and they're all different political opinions. We bring them together. We never impart our own political beliefs on them or force anything on them in terms of what we believe, but we give them a voice and we teach them how to respectfully exchange ideas. So
I would love to have the opportunity to talk to them. I know that a few of the candidates have reached out to speak with that group, and if it's truly nonpartisan, I would love the opportunity to meet all those kids and talk to them about the issues as well, and maybe even have a forum, because
Sure.
I know a lot of them are working for you, and I would love the opportunity to maybe tell them about some of my ideas, or maybe some other candidates can do so too, to make sure that you know, we all have expressed our positions on things and our ideas, and maybe even get some support from them as well.
So I'll say a couple things really quickly, is that absolutely, you know, Massachusetts Youth and Government ends its year in late March. So we did not have any meetings following that. We had an awards banquet that was absolutely non-political and had nothing to do with any political issue at all. And of course, I never never bring my own political ambitions into the club. It's just something that I've done for a number of years. I am lucky, as you mentioned, some of my kids have stepped forward and asked if they could help out with the campaign. Some of them have not, and that is totally fine, and that's up to them, and I would never ever want them to do anything else. And, but what I'm very proud of is that so many of these students have stepped forward, and that their parents have stepped forward to help my campaign as well, because they know that I've gone above and beyond just teaching these kids how to write a bill and share an idea. Is that I've been a mentor to them for a long time, and I've been an important figure in their lives, and they've been certainly important in my life. So obviously, once we start the year up, we always make sure that we're bringing in local political figures to speak to kids. We had Nicole Sands with the Marshfield Mariner come in and speak to them a bit this year. We had Deb Cornwall, who's really active, come in and speak with them.
Also a Mariner contributor.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, that's right. Representative Cantwell would speak with the kids pretty frequently. We had some selectmen come in. So absolutely, anybody who's willing to come in and speak with the kids about their experience and their positions is certainly welcome to do so.
Well, hopefully I can come in as their next state rep.
You know what? Absolutely, Pat. You know what? I don't think that's going to be an issue. Hopefully, I'll be bringing them to the State House for their annual.
To come and see me.
Their annual conference.
I'm sure you both hope that it's one of the two of you.
Yeah, and you know what?
Most certainly.
Absolutely, absolutely, Janet, and you know, we can expand on that later if you'd like to. But you know, as the next state representative, I'll fight very hard for this program up on Beacon Hill. We have been pushing for a bill for a while that has over 40 co-sponsors to put a donation checkoff box on all state tax returns to help bring state funding to youth and government. It's the only program of its kind in the state. It's nonpartisan. We've got hundreds of kids across the state, and it's incredibly valuable for them. I want to thank Charlie Baker, who always comes and speaks to the kids every year. That's something that I coordinate on the program's behalf. And like I said, I've been volunteering for 8 years, so as a young man, I think it's important to get the youth involved, and I've been doing something about it. But also, for just really quickly, in terms of my age as a 26-year-old man, having been a college graduate and been serving this community, I bring that youth and that energy, but I also bring 4 years as a twice elected local official, 4 years working in the state legislature full-time every day, responding to constituent concerns, working on legislative items, working on budgetary items, and I also bring experience at the federal level, having interned down in Washington, D.C. and Congress, and having interned up here in Congress as well at a local congressional office. And you know, I bring the experience of somebody who's lived in this district my entire life, grew up in Marshfield, and has those Marshfield and Scituate values instilled in me as two communities that are incredibly important to my family and to our well-being.
So both would say asset.
I think we would. That's clear.
Excellent.
Asset.
Perfect. All right, so we have been going for almost an hour now. So let's go with some rapid fire questions. So basically, I don't want to hear any elaboration. Just yes or no for the first first group of questions. Yeah. All right. So first one: are you guys in favor of raising the age to 21 for statewide for tobacco purchases?
I believe that was just raised actually by Representative McMurtry.
Yes, Representative Ayers, who I work for, was a co-sponsor. Proud to have worked with an
so you guys
office
support that?
push that.
Yes,
through.
I mean, it's,
Yes.
yes.
It's common sense.
Cool. Are you
Congratulations to those guys too.
Absolutely.
in favor of raising the death penalty for killing law enforcement
No.
officers?
No.
Cool. Are you in favor of pushing for a sales tax holiday in Massachusetts this year?
Also something that was just implemented,
Okay.
but even beforehand, yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, we should have caught up these questions.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We're making progress.
Okay, so this one I know didn't happen. So should Marshfield voters have approved the proposed changes to the town charter?
That's up to the Marshfield residents.
That's not a yes or no.
It's up to the
And your
Marshfield
opinion?
residents.
Your opinion matters. You're running for office.
It's up to the Marshfield residents. I don't live in Marshfield.
You can't say just a yes or no on that because
Yeah.
there's so many different aspects of it. I think, and I can speak as a Marshfield resident who always attends town meeting and was there for this one.
I said yes or no.
Well,
the rules.
It's up to the
That's the
Marshfield
rules.
residents.
So yes on the expansion of the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5 members. No on an aspect like making the town clerk.
So no, because the charter changes, not all of them.
Well, as they were presented, I mean, we had to make sure that we were doing.
Well, they went down as well. So.
That they did, but I would have been pushing for amendments to something like the town clerk being appointed rather than elected.
Correct.
The town clerk should continue to be elected.
Said yes or no, so I don't want to expand on that too much.
Yeah.
Next one. Do you think our delegation in Congress, nationally obviously, is doing enough to represent the state's interests? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they can be doing more.
Okay.
And that they can, and I'll point to the.
Nope, that's not.
Okay.
Those are the rules, Sean. Come
I
on.
know, but we just.
Follow the rules, Sean.
I know that's what we're trying to stop you guys from doing. Because people want to listen. Okay, final one. Yes or no? Residential development is a net positive for district towns.
For this district's towns?
Yeah. Residential development.
Depends on the development.
Private residential development.
Depends on the development.
We don't have the sewage capacity in Situate,
That's very true.
So no.
so no.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So I want to end more on a fun note. So let's talk about some things that are not really issue based and kind of about the district. So what are you guys' favorite places to eat around here? This can be, you don't have to just talk.
I love $1 shrimp and $1 oysters at Haddad's on Wednesday nights.
Sean?
Haddad's is awesome. Their chicken parm sandwich is great. I think I keep Famous Pizza in business.
I single-handedly, on this campaign, with my headquarters being on Ocean Street, right across from Famous Pizza, have been single-handedly employing multiple people.
I almost texted you when you moved in across there to warn you that Famous is addicted. They're very good. And, I've been going there since I was a young kid. Reba Pizza is also great in the center if you want to change it up. And Captain Flag is really
We got a
good.
Situate location too?
Yes, you do. Absolutely. The original.
The Situate in Situate is awesome.
Only place for fried seafood other than Roseland.
TK O'Malley's too as well.
The surf
my
and
next
turf
door neighbor's
scallops,
good.
steak tips, affordable, delicious.
Well, how do you guys feel about the very contentious issue in Situate as to whether or not Maria should allow lettuce on their subs?
It's a business model for them. It's been working, and I love a turkey, crane, and mayo with everything, including Huts from Maria's. So
Those hots are
I'm going to defer to Bud on that one.
You don't mess with Maria's.
Amazing. All right, so we were talking earlier about a concert I just went to, and you were making fun of my hoarse voice. So what is the last concert each of you guys went to?
The last concert I went to is I broke down the Zach Brown Band concert stage at Fenway a few weeks ago with the local 11th State Challenge Union. So that was the last concert I was at.
Cool. Sean?
I went to 2 concerts last summer. I can't remember which one was last. Coldplay, my 3rd time seeing them, and Bruce Springsteen, my 4th time seeing the Boss.
That's
No, I actually saw Bruce Springsteen in an impromptu concert at Ellis Island.
How cool
It was
that?
incredible.
He's unbelievable.
And
Legend.
his grandfather went through Ellis Island.
His Broadway show's going on Netflix.
Yeah.
He's going on Netflix?
Yeah, they're
oh,
recording of it.
that just made my day.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Tickets were so out of this.
What is the last book each of you, not going to say right, but completed?
The Rascal King. It's about the first Irish mayor of Boston, James Michael Curley.
Cool.
That's very good. I just finished reading John McCain's new book, actually, believe it or not. It was very good, especially there's a great chapter in there on his relationship with Senator Kennedy.
What's the name of the book?
Oh God, I even forget the name of the book, but it's sitting right next to my bed.
If you were the
Great.
president, if you were the
If you
president,
just
you would have
finished
answered.
it. If you just finished it.
You would have answered All Quiet on the Western Front is Donald Trump's favorite.
Right, no, but I do have to say there's a chapter.
Oh my God.
Oh, boy. Didn't know Donald Trump could read.
Wow, he can tweet.
He can certainly tweet. There's a chapter in John McCain's new book on his relationship with Ted Kennedy, and it's fantastic. And I would recommend the book, despite being of the opposite political party from Senator McCain.
I'd love to know the name of it to read it sometime.
They escape the mind sometimes. All right, you guys are walking into Dunkin's or Starbucks or any of the local coffee places. What is your order?
If I'm going into Dunkin', it's a...
this is good for constituents to know in case they're trying to, be nice to you.
Medium iced coffee, caramel swirl, a little bit of milk. But, it depends. Coffee corner, that's extra large iced coffee, caramel macchiato. So, I'd get a, a mocha at Lucky Finn in Situate. So it depends on where I'm going. Mix it up a little bit.
Sean?
Well, that's a trick question.
It is a trick question
because
for Sean.
The correct answer is Gunther's.
Oh,
yeah. Go to Gunther's.
Well, that's not in the district.
Right.
That's in Pembroke, Sean.
Well, you're right. It's right over the line. You're right. It's right over the line.
They do call themselves the Pemfield location?
The Pemfield location, exactly. Same with the Mary Lou's across the street. The fun fact about me is that those big chain coffee places, I can't even drink their product. Not to make people weary of it, but they do put a certain preservative in their coffee that I'm allergic to. So I can't drink Dunkin' Donuts.
You're allergic to seafood too, right?
It's a seaweed extract, so it's certain type of, I can eat some types of seafood, some other types I can't. Yeah.
The more you know. All right, speaking of seafood, sort of, because my favorite is The Little Mermaid, what is your favorite Disney animated movie?
Definitely The Jungle Book, because I love to sing the bare necessities.
I'm going to have to go with The Lion King. It's a great classic. First movie I ever saw in the theater, though, was Toy Story. So that's the one that's up there.
Mulan's up there. That was still Pixar, unfortunately.
Mulan
Disney
is
Pixar.
up there.
Okay, fine. You want to get technical, Jim?
Hey, I am a reporter. Excellent, guys. Awesome. That concludes all the questions I have. Do you guys want to just spend, I'll give you each 90 seconds to kind of wrap it up?
Sure. Go ahead, Sean. Hold on one second. Well, I want to thank you, James. Again, I want to thank the Marshfield and Situate Mariners for hosting this forum. And I want to thank you for including some fun questions that allowed us to share a little more about who we are. And I want to thank you for allowing us to go on a little bit and have some in-depth policy discussions. And really what I want to end with is experience. And I want to stress to the people of Marshfield and Situate some different kinds of experience that I think I bring to the race and that I would like to bring to Beacon Hill on their behalf. I'll stress again that I've worked full-time in the legislature for the last 4 years on writing and drafting and tracking and analyzing legislation and working on budget items and working with constituent services. We have written a whole lot of bills that are reaching certain points and bills that are benefiting people. Is one in particular I'm really proud of, to make the assault of a healthcare provider in Massachusetts a felony. That's something that I wrote, and that seems to be about to reach the finish line after pushing it for a number of sessions. I also bring experience as a local elected official, being accountable to the people of Marshfield as the chairman of the school committee. I just want to say too, the other experience that I bring is the experience of somebody who grew up in a working family and knew what it was like to watch my parents struggle, who went to public school and knew what it was like to watch a teacher struggle and not have the materials that they need. I will bring that experience to Beacon Hill because I've also watched how people pull themselves up and make sure that we're successful. And I've been working on behalf of my community for 4 years, and I'll work my hardest for Marshfield and Situate on Beacon Hill as their next state representative.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sean. Pat, closing remarks.
So, Sean, James, thank you so much for the forum today. I appreciate it. And it is my favorite quote. I've said it a bunch on the campaign trail, but RFK once said, the future is not completely beyond our control. It is the work of our own hands. And my family roots dating back to 1928 here in the district have instilled in me a love for both of these coastal towns. I'm eager to roll up my sleeves and chart a better course for the future of Marshfield and Situate and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As we spoke about earlier in the forum, the reality is young people don't have an advocate at the State House. We're facing issues like climate change, school shootings, unaffordable cost to education, and these issues require a new generation of leadership, not the same old, same old. one that puts fiscally responsible attitudes and common sense legislation to work for the benefit of the people. We need to have sustainable seawalls, our clean water, it's not an issue we're facing, that needs to be sustainable. Our senior centers and their health care needs to be sustainable. Our fishing industry and the regulations that they face need to be sustainable. I think that we keep electing people who don't know what it's like to actually work and walk in the shoes of the people that they represent and or have the passion to fight for them on Beacon Hill. So for all of you tuning in on Facebook and on the podcast, allow me the opportunity to be your next state representative, because I commit to you the energy, the passion, the leadership skills that the district needs to advocate for it at the State House. I'd love to hear more from you. If you have any good ideas, I know there's a ton of smart people that live in the district. Our website's electpatrickkearney.com. My cell phone number is 781-690-7923. My door will always be open. I live at 18 Lighthouse Road, and I'm going to be continuing to knock on yours, so thank you.
Well, Sean, do you want to share your contact information too?
I do. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. My website is seanforrep.com, and it's SEAN forrep.com. People are also welcome to call me, 781-799-1817. We've knocked thousands of doors. We're going to continue doing that, and I look forward to hearing from residents and bringing their concerns to Beacon Hill.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming in today. So we will be hopefully hosting the Republican candidates as well before the September primary, and then once we get the general, there are 2 independent candidates running as well. So we look forward to speaking with all those candidates over the next couple of months as we figure out who's going to take Canwell seat. So thank you guys so much, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
You guys want to grab a bite to eat?
I have 4.
Just depending on what time it is. I've got a 1 o'clock.
It's 12:07. That was fun.
That was fun. Good stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we can tell.
My mother runs a horse man charter school.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Your mother is
Are
very
we still
good.
live?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, low battery, so now.
When did that happen?